Saza. And today we have an amazing stream for you. We have our very own Jeff Smith out of Houston, Texas. We're going to be talking about raising private capital to make your own real estate fund. And this is really cool because this is something I'm doing. So, um, long story short, I've been raising private money for my real estate deals. And recently, I raised about a little over, million and a half for a 21 unit acquisition of uh, pretty much Airbnbs in Pensacola, Florida. When I say pretty much Airbnbs, this is what I mean. 21 unit acquisition of undeveloped properties, strong bones, good bones, but insides need renovations, and we need to add kitchens, and just completely redesign the interior and turn them into Airbnbs. That means furnishing, that means amenities, it means property management, on-site property management, it means laundry services, all that kind of stuff in this kind of cul-de-sac, which we own every single property on. So 21 properties in that portfolio deal, and they're all going to be Airbnbs. We raised about a little over $1.5 million for it, and that was done through a syndicate. So what that means is we raised a ton of private money. Every investor is a partner of ours on that acquisition and on the rehab. And once it's done and it's cash flowing, we will get a loan against the property and cash out our investors. And we're going to keep them as partners for the entirety of the project. So we don't plan on selling it. We want to keep it forever. And we want to let the investors that partnered with us keep it forever with us. So Jeff Smith is a good friend of mine. He's in the Sub2 community, and he's a leader in the Sub2 community. And he is known as a closer, meaning he is known as somebody who's good at getting on the phone with sellers and explaining creative financing to them and walking them through the steps where they will agree to the terms of a creative financing offer and they will sign the dotted line. So Jeff Smith is not only really good at closing deals, he's also a coach in the Sub2 community. He coaches on Mondays in the Daily Dial, and he's written a script that is very famous in our community. It's Jeff Smith's common objections and rebuttals to objections using the Sandler sales framework. So he's very technical, very, very savvy as an investor. He's based out of Houston. And he called me the other day and said, Manif, I want to learn more about the funds you're doing. I want to learn more about the syndications. Can we get on a Zoom or a stream or something like this and talk a little bit about them? And I said, of course, Jeff, absolutely. You've helped me so much with the stuff you've been putting out in the community. I'd love to show you some of the stuff I'm working on. And we're going to be pulling him up in a second right here. All right. What is up, Jeff Smith? How are you?
Dude, I'm doing great. Thanks again for having me here. I'm on the takeaway. Holy crap, this is awesome.
Oh man, dude, it's amazing having you here, man. It really is. It's special. I'm excited to have you. I'm really excited to be talking about this because I'm really passionate about this. This is something I really want to scale, which is finding really good project opportunities, going out to people who might have a hard time finding a deal, might have a hard time finding resources. Maybe they don't have time to project manage or project plan or execute on a lot of this stuff, but they have capital. There's a lot of people who have capital, but they just don't know how to utilize it. And I want to give them an opportunity to say, hey, look, you'll be my partner on these bigger projects, and you and me can go and take down some of these like 10, 20, 40, 50, 100 unit projects and complexes, and we can do different things with them. We can do mixed use where we do retail, we do long term lease, we do short term rentals. Maybe we sell some of them and refinance the others. We can do really interesting things with real estate. Some of them we can sell on owner finance. We talked about owner finance with Chai and Prakash yesterday. Maybe we can sell some of these on owner finance and become the bank and collect a high interest rate. So there's a million different things we can do because we have the power of community and we have the power of creative finance. And when you combine those, the possibilities are endless. So this is a topic I'm really excited to talk about. But before we jump in, I've talked a lot. Jeff, can you maybe talk a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Yeah. So, back long ago when, we were making the wheel and crafting fire and stuff, I was in the oil and gas world. And actually, I went overseas to the Middle East for 3 years, came back with, pretty healthy amount of money in my war chest and said, what is a business I can start chasing after? And so I found my way into real estate, tinkered around with rentals, actually participated in a syndication on a multifamily project as a passive investor. So, I kind of know functionally how that works. Did a few other things. We made a bit of money, and now we have arrived in the development space, like raw land, taking it through approvals, and then selling that to builders. So actually, as of yesterday, I got a big contract here. We're going to be taking down a 230-acre piece of land. I had to get with 3 different families to negotiate this. I had to get with the town to do it. It's like that's what we do. And so the reason I reached out to you is we're going to have a syndication to do this. And the developer I'm working with, like, he knows how to do it, but
Mhm,
I want to get better educated, learn
mhm.
more, either so if I do one in the future or just at minimum to help push along this project. So that's who I am. And again, thanks for taking the time to talk with me about all this.
Of course. And so you're really, last time we talked, we met in Houston, and you are the accountability leader for the Sub 2 community in Houston. And you held a dope party for us, me and Noah Hoffman. We were in Houston for a few days, and you held a Sub 2 meetup for us. So thank you for that. That was amazing. And we talked for a while there, and you mentioned to me that you're really like doing this cool thing with land where you're buying raw land and then you're getting something. I think it was called entitlements, where you get these things. I think they're like maybe like and correct me if I'm wrong, but the way I understand it is like you get like city like septic or sewage or electricity, and you basically make it really easy, and you pull maybe permits or things or subdivide things or do whatever. You work your magic on this raw land, and you make it really easy for a builder or a developer to come in and go, oh my gosh, you've done all the work for me. I can actually start building real estate on this, so I'm going to pay you more, Jeff, because I don't need to go through this approval system with the local government for 9 months. I can just start building on it right now. Am I on the money there, or did I get anything wrong?
Yeah, I mean that is in essence, what the business model is.
Okay.
However, with the way the market has shifted and with interest rates and all the rest of it,
Uh-huh.
that model doesn't work as well as it has. The
Okay.
builders aren't quite as hungry. So
Sure.
what we're having to do is instead of taking it directly to one of the nationals, I need to partner with a local guy to actually produce the finished lots, and then we can sell that off. So there's kind of another step involved. So what it means is I'll take a bite of the apple when we close and take title to the land, and I'll get a second bite at it when we sell off the lots. Hence why we're in this syndication scenario. So what you explained it and the way you did that is correct. We just had to adjust the way we take down these projects just because of the market.
So tell me a little bit about that. You make a little bit of money on the front end and on the back end. So how does that work exactly? If I'm watching this, I don't really know much about land, but maybe I want to get into land. Maybe I want to pull a list of land, because a lot of real estate investors, they stay away from land because they understand single family, they understand multifamily, and they're like, land is a little too complex. So I'm going to stay away from that. But maybe there are a lot of opportunities in land. Maybe there's a lot of opportunities in pulling lists for vacant land or raw land. And let's say I want to get into that. Um, can you explain a little bit? How are you making money on the front end, the back end of the, in this
Yeah.
transaction?
So So the thing to keep in mind, like the reason single family and multifamily is a really good spot is because it doesn't take as long from contract to close. Just to
Hmm.
put this in perspective, this piece of paper right here,
Hmm.
there's three families I had to work with. The first two families I contracted in April. April.
Jesus.
The third family now contracted as of yesterday, and we're going to close and take title in March.
Of next year. Holy shit.
Yeah.
This is
So
a 12
just
month
keep
process.
this in perspective, guys. Like I won't lie to you, like there's good money in land and development, like no doubt about it.
Uh-huh.
But it is not something you like quickly wholesale and wrap this sucker up into. It just doesn't work that way.
Okay.
And that's why like when I talk about terms, most of us in sub 2 are thinking about payments, and that is correct. But for me, the terms are a lot more complicated. I had to work with multiple attorneys negotiating the terms to get this thing done, which is fine, and I'm more than apt to handle it.
Mhm.
But anyway, the time frame is just immense. So it may take me a year to close this thing. It's going to take another year to develop the lots and all of that. So it is very, very slow burn, long duration. But anyway, the way this deal is structured is we'll close and take title. And at that time, and this is where the syndication and all this starts to play into it, we'll take out an acquisition and development loan, an A&D loan. You guys will hear this sometime. We'll take out the A&D loan, and at that time, when we take title, part of that loan will be, my first bite, because we're essentially assigning this contract
Oh,
to
got
the
it.
new entity that's created.
You're giving yourself an acquisition fee for all the work you've done over the 6 months to reimburse yourself for your time and your marketing costs because you need to assign it to the entity that's going to actually hold the property and develop the property.
Right. So that pays me my
Okay.
marketing fee, but it also pays for some of the upfront engineering spending I've had to do on plat and all this other crap. So that all gets done. So that's where we take the first bite, and then there's a profit share at the back end. And then so I'll be a class A member of this new syndication, and then we'll have some class B members, and they'll all get paid in their way.
Okay, excellent. Um, so let's jump right in, guys. If you also have any questions for just us, me, or Jeff on anything we're talking about, ask us in the comments. If you're on Facebook, it's a little bit harder to read your comments because it doesn't show up on my restream, so it's in a different tab. But I can see YouTube and Twitch comments pretty easily. Okay, so let's jump into it. So you already have a developer who's experienced in syndications. Your goal here is to understand what's going on a little bit better because you're already involved in one. Is that right?
Yeah, to understand, correct. The developer knows how to do, like, I could sit back and essentially do nothing as
Right.
far as that's concerned, but
Sure.
I do want to assist in raising money. And the
Sure.
day will probably come where I'm going to decide, do I want to do this myself or not?
Got it. And do you know if it's like a 506B or 506C? Do you know any of that? Got it. Okay. 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 Got it. Okay, so let's start. Have you raised private money for just like single family or projects? Because I want to start like in the beginning, and just talk about like the whole process of just private money and like why things are done the way they're done, and maybe like syndication as a long term strategy, whether it's good or bad, what the benefits and the costs are for syndications. Because sometimes, like me, I'm actually not really going to do syndications going forward. I'm going to do something else, which is going to be a Reg CF or a Reg D going forward, and we're going to get into that. But have you raised private money, Jeff? Like for just like because I know you've got some capital from your oil and gas stuff. So I know deployed a lot of your own capital, but have you used a lot of other people's capital or not so much?
We have used some family and friends for private investors, yes.
Okay, cool. So The first type of money raising is like private money for um, your just small projects, like a fix and flip loan you get from somebody, for 6 months or 12 months, and these are typically, either like a hard money loan, private money from an institution, or friends and family who will spot you 50 grand, 100 grand, nothing big. And there's usually a interest rate associated with this and a security associated with this, so lien on the property. There's also a interest, like I said, interest rate. So interest rate security. There's also protection lending policy. So like usually when you go through title, you'll get a lender's policy. So this person's a lender, and typically um, you don't really have to jump through too many hoops for this kind of private raise. Um, you don't want to solicit, uh, like, hey, I'm doing fix and flips. I'm going to solicit. Um, I'm going to solicit from strangers to lend on my deals, because that gets a little dicey. From friends and family, people who know you, and they'll give you these personal loans. It's considered lending, and it's fine because you're getting a lender's policy for them. Um, that's the first kind of private raising. The second kind is partnerships. So that is where, say, you and I do a project together, Jeff, and my job is to handle the financials, and your job is to handle the operations. It really doesn't matter where I get the money from, if I can borrow the money from somebody or if it's my own money. My job is to fund the deal, and that's my role. That's my contribution as your partner, and that's totally fine. And we can be, oh, my microphone fell. We can be more or less strangers, and that's fine because we're partners. We can be strangers but partners. We could have met at a networking event, or you could have maybe made a post on Facebook or somewhere and said, hey, I'm looking for a partner. We got on a call and we like each other and we're partner on this deal. And your job is operations and my job is to bring the funding, and we have definite, easily recognizable roles. And you can have up to 5 or 6 partners on a deal, and no one will bat an eye. Now, when you get past 6, that's when it's harder to justify everyone's role. Because how many roles can you have in a project where they're truly responsible for something? After 6, it's a little dicey. And if you can't justify somebody having a role, but they're a partner and they're making a financial contribution, well, now you face potential security sale violations. And so that's when we get into the next form of private money raising. So we've got, first is lending, we've got the second, which is partnerships, and we've got the third, which is a fund. So a fund is a type of entity where you do not know what property you're buying. You do not know what property you're buying. And you hire SEC attorneys to establish the fund. And when you decide what property you're going to buy, your attorneys will actually draft a thesis for that property. They'll draft this thesis, and it's a huge thesis. They'll do like migration patterns and appreciation, market trends, and justify why this is a good property. And they'll write something, and you're going to actually have to do this, Jeff, in your deal. I'm like 99.9% sure, for your syndication. They're going to draft a massive document. I mean, it's about this thick. It's called a PPM. Have you heard of the PPM?
I have. I read the PPM in the last syndication. It's just funny you said thesis. I was like, oh God. like back to college. I got to write another one of these damn
Well,
things.
you don't. Your attorneys will do that. Like if you have good SEC attorneys, they're going to do that,
Yeah.
and they will also draft your PPM. That's what you pay them for. So I hope you're not drafting any of this stuff because you're paying a lot of money to draft this. And the PPM is a private placement memorandum, so you're already aware of this, and it's. And for those of you watching who don't know what a PPM is, it is a thick booklet of all the reasons you're going to blank. I'm going to ask the chat, what is the blank? The PPM is all the ways you're going to blank. I'm asking the chat, what is blank? Who's paying attention? Who's asleep?
I think I have a guess.
I know. I think. Well, you've already gone through a PPM, so
Yeah.
Dustin says use the funds. Okay, that's what I thought actually in the beginning. Andrea Garcia, she knows the answer. It's lose money.
Yeah.
Yeah, all the way. You're gonna lose money. Like 90% of the PPM, it's like this thick, is like disclosures to the partners or the participants of the fund how you're gonna lose money. So you can't say, "Hey, what do you mean we lost money? I wasn't told we could lose money." No, this is investment, and it's a pain in the butt because you don't need all of these disclosures for accredited investors, people who are truly sophisticated or professional, accredited investors, people who know what they're doing. They understand what it means to make an investment. And investment means there's risk, and risk means you can lose money, and you're not guaranteed any money. So Matt Abar says 50 ways to lose money, more like 5,000 ways to lose money. But yeah, that's the PPM. It's disclosures. And then the PPM also has the the operational partners or managing partners or class A investors, whatever you call them, basically a group that's doing the operations. It's got disclosures about them. So, like, let's say I was a felon, which I'm not, but say I was, it would say, hey, you need to know that Manif Saza is a felon or was a felon. Say
Somebody's absolutely going to take that clip and post it.
Yeah. It's like Manif Saza is a felon. I did not live that exciting of a life. Trust me. I lived a very boring life. Very boring. But say somebody's had a bankruptcy or like maybe a major lawsuit or something like that the attorneys feel like they have to disclose. It's disclosed in the PPM, so you know who's on this project. So one of our projects, one of our partners had a bankruptcy or something like 6 years ago, and that was disclosed. And so we're like, hey, just so you know, this person had to file a strategic bankruptcy for these holdings. And everyone was like, cool. Yeah, we get it. We know how to play the game. So that's disclosed in the PPM. What is Dustin saying? What? Munif Saza is a felon. This is hilarious. Yes. Yes, Dustin, I am a felon. I'm just joking. I should really watch what I say so I don't incriminate myself. That's hilarious. So that's in a fund. That's a fund, and you don't know what you're buying. And a syndication is when you do know what you're buying. You don't have to do a thesis for a syndication because you know what you're buying. You actually make a syndication for a property that you've already contracted or you're going to contract. You've already figured out what you're going to buy. And so there's two kinds of syndications. Does anybody know what those two are?
The shady kind and the not shady kind.
That's kind of hilarious. Actually, yeah, you could say.
I'm almost bothered that you're hesitant, like, that actually like, yes. Like,
Andrea's got it. 506B and 506C. And Matt says, yeah, it's accredited. It's accredited and non-accredited. So there's two kinds of syndications. One is for accredited investors only, meaning there are people who there's like all these rules for accredited investors. Let's look it up. Accredited investor definition. So, what is an accredited investor? Accredited investor is an individual or business entity that is allowed to trade securities that may not be registered with financial authorities. They are entitled to this privileged access by satisfying at least one requirement regarding their income, their net worth, asset size, governance status, professional experience. So, how do we? What are those definitions? Okay, who qualifies to become an accredited investor? An SEC defines an accredited investor as either an individual with gross income exceeding 200,000 in each of the two most recent years, or joint income with a spouse or partner exceeding 300,000 for those years, and a reasonable expectation of the same level of income in the current year. So make 200 by yourself or 300 together, which is actually there are a lot of people in the sub 2 community who can easily qualify for that. A person whose individual net worth or joint net worth with that person's spouse or partner exceeds $1 million, excluding that person's primary residence. So those will define you as an accredited investor. Any questions about that, guys? I think Jeff, you got that right. I think that's something you're familiar with, like the terminology for the accredited versus non-accredited.
yeah, I'm familiar with that. I had not heard so much on the professional experience. Regina, who's one of my business partners, she mentioned that before. It's like, yeah, due to financial experience, you may be an accredited investor. It's like, oh, I hadn't heard of that. That's interesting.
Yeah, I have no clue. I like the specific like requirements of whether somebody's accredited or not. I don't know. I just ask them to talk to my attorneys to see if they qualify. And then Andrea says 506B equal buddies, only stating verbally about your deal. So I believe 506B is just Googling this. I think that's, just want to make sure I don't say the wrong thing. 506B is, they're both fundraising. Okay, so Rule 506B of Regulation D allows a startup to accept an unlimited amount of money through investments from as many accredited investors as desired. Rule 506C allows startups conducting an offering to engage in general solicitation and advertising. However, unlike Rule 506B, startups must take reasonable steps to verify that all investors are accredited investors only. So you cannot advertise a 506B, but you don't need to make sure that they're accredited. And my understanding is the 506B, and maybe B is for buddies, is you can bring friends and family into the 506B, but you cannot into the 506C. So that is my understanding. I am not a lawyer. What I do is I ask my lawyers what I can or can't do, and they tell me. So, for example, our Pensacola deal, we did a 506B offering to purchase the property. And for the rehab, we're doing something called a crowd CF. Sorry, a reg CF, a regulation CF, crowdfund. Andrea says, I heard 506B is from people you have pre-existing relationships with and keep track of those conversations. How do I do that? CRM. That's a really good question. My attorney said if you like are friends with them, like there should be call logs, text messages with timestamps. I mean, obviously, family is pretty easy to prove, but friends is like, text messages is timestamped, phone calls are logged, emails. If they've been to your house before and they've hung out with you, like that's that's a general good indicator that they're friends. Like I have photos. One of my investors were friends, and I have a photo of like me at his wedding. So that's like that's pretty good documentation.
I
Um,
think that's right because, like, in the syndication I was in before, like, it was a really big deal that you established not only that you established this pre-existing relationship with the person, but that they couldn't be the one to like strike up this conversation with you. So I had to like do outreach to people so they could keep that record that no, I did not broadcast this to Jeff. He established a connection with me first, and then I approached him about the deal.
that's awesome. That's awesome. So the 506B and 506C are challenging because what if somebody's not accredited and they're not friends and family? How do you raise money with them? And that's when we get to the regulation CF, the Reg CF. And CF stands for crowdfund. And this is there's two of these kind of regulations. There's regulation D and regulation CF. Reg CF and Reg D, I believe that's it. The Reg D is for large amounts of money, like Grant Cardone levels of money, and the Reg CF is up to $5 million a year. You can crowdfund, and you do not need to be friends with family. They do not need to be accredited, and they can actually have equity in your deal. And all these the 506B, the 506C, the Reg CF, the funds, they all have PPM, private placement memorandums. So they have these thick documentation with all the disclosures, and they know what they're buying, which is partnership or equity into the deals, and you set the terms however you want to set the terms. And the amazing thing about the Reg CF is the minimum investment required is $500. So you can advertise it, you can talk about it. It can be open to anybody, and you'll have a landing page. You have to actually use a broker to actually host your crowdfund. So it's separate fees from the SEC attorneys that actually do all the paperwork. You actually have to pay a broker at least 2% of your raise for just brokering the financials and having a landing page for you and saying, hey, for Jeff Smith's crowdfund, send us the money. And here's the information about the deal. Here's the website. Here's Jeff Smith. Here's who he is. And you can raise up to $5 million a year. So for our deal here in Pensacola, we didn't have time to do a Reg CF because it can take anywhere between 3 to 6 months to start a Reg CF because you have to send a ton of paperwork to the federal government, to the SEC. Then they have to prove the Reg CF, and that can take a while because of back and forth, and the government's very slow. So we had a time constraint on this project. We had to close in a matter of weeks. We didn't have months. So what we did is we did a 506B, and we close on it with accredited investors. And we're going to sell the 506B to the Reg CF entity. We're going to keep the shares the same and have a Reg CF raise the remainder of the funds. So it's really cool. It's really creative. It was recommended by Pace's attorney. His SEC attorney recommended we do it that way to get the deal done.
Wow.
Yeah, that was cool.
That's like that's just sheer craziness to me.
Yes, it is. Dude, I'm dealing with the paperwork. We're doing the Reg CF now, and it's like it's crazy, and it's like holy crap. And it's cool because we're not letting paperwork hold up the project because we were able to raise enough money to actually start the renovations for the project in the 506B. And then we're going to sell the project to the Reg CF. And all the people who weren't friends or family or accredited investors and who didn't qualify for the 506B offering that are waiting to be a part of the project for the second phase, they get to participate in this awesome 21 unit Airbnb in Pensacola, and that's just a lot of legal paperwork.
But like, what a cool story that is to share, though, and obviously, like, what a cool experience that is to share that with other people. Like, duh. But you have now this incredible story to tell of like, here's how we did this wickedly awesome thing.
It's awesome, man. And you know what, man? What I really like about this is you can have multiple Reg CFs. They just have to be different entities. You just have to pay the filing fees and the processing fees to the attorneys to set them up, and they can cost about $20,000 to $30,000 per Reg CF. Yeah. But that's it. That's the deal. That's what we're going through, and we're probably going to do a Zoom. Maybe if we have enough people, if I have enough people, like in the chats, comments, or people who message me, if they want to hear more about the Pensacola deal I'm doing and like the deal itself, how we were able to, the challenges of the deal and how we were able to overcome those challenges. I could do a Zoom about that, but that's a different topic. Jeff, like what kind of questions do you have, or what kind of things were you hoping to specifically learn? I know I talk a lot about the general overview for what I did, but what were you hoping to take away?
Yeah. So, I feel like I kind of got into this a little bit late. I probably should have brought this up before. But now that we have the project, so on the development deal I'm doing,
Yeah.
and this really applies to any property. I'm just using mine as an example. So anybody who's thinking about that, it doesn't matter. So I've already got the property locked up. I know full well which one I'm pursuing. And now now we're in a position to where we need to raise money. The developer I'm working with probably has plenty of connections. Raising money's not, he's already got it.
Okay.
As for me, there's probably a handful of people I already know. I know them, like we're friends and stuff, and there probably a handful of them are accredited investors. It
Sure.
sounds to me like they are really the only ones I could approach about this at all. And anybody else, whether they're accredited or not, they're just going to have to wait for the next boat in order to participate with me on a project in the syndication. Do I basically have that right?
Yes. And so, do you know if you're doing a 506B or 506C?
I don't know at this stage.
Um,
I assume it's going to be a 506B.
where you can have non-accredited investors in it, right? Like where you might be able to. They sure needs to make sure the investor is a sophisticated investor, meaning they have knowledge of business or investment and are familiar with this type of investment. General solicitation is also not allowed. So I think like I'm pretty sure for the 506B, if you're friends with somebody, you should be able to show them the deal. Like if you have investor friends that you have, like you're truly friends with them, you should be able to show them the deal to see if they want to partner on it. But
Yeah.
I'm not an attorney, so I don't want to say this to you and then become a felon, and then just manifest me being a felon. So, but I think that's the case. You should be able to find your. I think if they're a accredited investor, it's like super easy. You can be like, "Hey, you're an accredited investor. Do you want to see this deal?" Super easy. And I think in both of them, accredited investors can invest, but on only one of them, non accredited investors can invest, and that's the 506B. And if that's what you're doing, then I would raise money from those folks. But what I've learned, man, is like it's like way easier to uh, raise the money first, or like talk about like the projects and the raising money and like, hey, this is the kind of stuff I do, way before you need the money. Like that's what I've learned time and time again, and it's like I keep making that I keep relearning that lesson. So for you, I almost want to say like maybe think about, because you're gonna keep doing these kind of deals, maybe you should look into a Reg CF and just have a fund
Hmm.
where like, hey, like it's gonna be 5 million, and this is the share of like you'll get this much. We're gonna have one entity, one LLC that will be worth 5 million. It's going to have 5 million in cash assets, and here's everyone's cuts of this LLC, and here's all these. Here's how we're going to structure this, and just really make it a real estate startup. And now go raise that money, go through the process of a crowd CF or Reg CF, excuse me, and then you'll have 5 million liquid capital where you can then go and use as buying power for your deals. And now you've got your liquid 5 million, and you are the operator of this LLC that's got 5 million in cash reserves, and you can go do things with that. And I really think I think that's where like I recommend you going and taking that road, because once you have that, you can advertise and you can raise money from anybody. So you can be like, hey, here's how you put in $1,000 into my Reg CF. So look, I think Pace has one. It's called investwithpace.com.
Yeah, I saw that. There's like a waiting list right now for
Yeah,
that, or
exactly. So let's talk about it. Like that's
cool.
it. Invest with Pace. That's his landing page for his Reg CF. Current markets for investments. So like his Reg CF broker set this website up. Join waiting list. Boom.
Yeah.
I can say no. I can say $1,000 is what I can invest. I can give you my information, and that's it. And I'm registered.
Hmm.
And then look, it gives you disclosures. Credit investor is somebody who has this much money, or so 200,000 or 300,000 if they're married. They have net worth over $1 million. The material on this website does not constitute an offer or a solicitation to purchase securities. This is an example. So they've got their disclosures,
Hmm.
and you can just join the waiting list to be part of this $5 million fund. So like you could have like investwithjeff.com, and that would be yours, and people can uh, people can join that and invest $1,000 with you, and they'll have a sliver of equity or whatever into that fund, and the fund has X amount of net worth based on the projects you're doing, and you have X amount of ownership, and you can structure it however. I would recommend that rather than like doing a 506B or 506C offering every time you do one of these projects, because it's a pain in the ass.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. There's another developer that I work with, and they had raised a ton of money in this fund, and they were just knocking down deals left and right. And I was just like, a fund? Holy crap! I don't.
Yeah,
That sounds wild. And now we're looking at it, I was like, damn, that actually sounds like a great idea.
that's a great idea, dude. How much did they raise in their fund?
Oh, I don't know. It was an ungodly amount of money.
It was like 50 million, 100 million, like
I
that
think it was
level.
probably like 50 million. It was like overnight.
So that I think is a Reg D fund. I think it's called. Um, I don't know. There's whatever Grant Cardone does. He does that. He's like really good at that. But
Yeah.
I'm not there. I'm not the 50 million. I want to hit 5 million first on the Reg CF, and then we're gonna see what happens. But yeah, I think this is really cool. I'm very much a newbie in this, but I do know that a Reg CF is the way to go. Like that's like what my gut's telling me. It's like I just don't have the um, maybe a lot of these developers. I think what they do is they go to networking events where because there are people who find accredited investors, and they'll just make you know what I'm talking about. There are people who do that. They go to networking events, they find them, and then they'll pull them, and then they'll look at projects, and they're like, hey, I've got this much money. If they all like your project, slice me in some equity. You know what I mean? And
Dude,
that's
I
all.
hear like this is like 99% of why you go to these high end like Tony Robbins events. Like you
Yeah,
walk in the door, it's like, who the hell in here is not accredited essentially by this standard? And they
exactly.
start knocking down these deals and raising money.
It's super cool, but like that just feels like a pain in the ass because it's like I don't know, just like I don't know, maybe in a different stage of my life, most of my friends are going to be accredited investors, and I'll just be doing 506c or 506b offerings. But like right now, it feels like I'll spend the 20,000, get a Reg CF going, and because I think like right now, most of my audience and in my platform is like people who'd be down for like a $1,000 or $2,000 investment and becoming a partner with me, not somebody who's like, oh yeah, I could write a check for 250,000 or 500,000,
Yeah.
which is cool. I think that's really cool. But like, I think there's something amazing about like being able to participate in a deal, a massive real estate deal, for like $1,000 check.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
DFW Dory says, when you have 1,000 doors, you're ready. Okay, cool. I'm nowhere near there, but that's gonna be fun.
It's
That's
right
gonna be
around the
cool.
corner for you, man.
Oh man, we'll see, man.
Saw
I'm
Heather.
excited.
I saw Heather Chapman in the chat too. I connected with her a few weeks ago. She was doing some developments out of Tennessee, and she was commenting like, what we were talking about, raising money first, and then then also chasing after the projects because of this issue that we just talked about. And she said, "Yeah, we're experiencing this right now." Hey, Heather, we're gonna have to do some deals in Tennessee. We'll probably start marketing there, and probably sometime next year, squad up with Heather.
That's awesome, man. So I hope I was able to give you a little bit of clarity. I know a lot of the stuff you already knew, and by no means am I an expert on this. I'm kind of figuring stuff out as I go through. We are starting our Reg CF process now. I'll tell you how long it takes when I go through it. Apparently, it takes a hell of a long time. Pace still hasn't gotten his approved, and he started his a while ago. It's because the government. So you got to do all the attorney paperwork and stuff, and then the government takes forever to start it. So
Shocking. The government is slow at something. What? Say it isn't so.
yeah, is there a bank account that needs to be set up for the money, or do the investors keep the money until
That's a
it's
good
needed?
question.
That's a really good question. So um, we had so for the 506b, it was a really good question. What happened is we had closing in like 4 weeks or 3 weeks, and we had to like rush the 506b. I had to tell my investors like, hey, be ready to wire money on this day, and they wired it to we had to make a bank account for the new entity, and they wired it to the entity, and then every wire had to be tracked and then associated with that investor, and then we had to send all that to the attorneys, and then the LLC, once it had all the money, we sent the money to title to close. So that's how we did it. Here's something that's cool for the Reg CF, because um, the renovation is going to cost us like easily over $500,000. We're going to raise more than we need just in case, because it's easier to ask for more than you need than like ask for less than you need and then ask for more. And if we have too much money, we can always give it back. That's always easier to do than ask for more.
Right.
So we're raising 850 for the renovation, but we really need about 500. And the interesting thing, the cool thing is, I don't want that in the LLC bank account where me and the other operators have access to it. What I would prefer is we're going to use one of these broker companies that are going to have like a landing page and a portal for the investors to log in and to see their investment, to see the status updates and things like that. Because I want to have a portal where all the partners who invested 50,000 or 5,000 or 10,000, whatever they invested, to be able to log into a portal to see the status updates on the project, to see. We're going to put video cameras on the project so they can actually see the live feed of like what's going on in the property, which I thought was pretty cool. But I also wanted them to see that we didn't have access to the funds. So one thing we wanted to do was give this third party the money, so you can actually find these really vetted third party companies that will hold the money, and they're really the platform for the project. So they hold the website, the landing page, and they'll hold the money. And then we come in and we do work, and we send an inspector to prove that the work was done, and then they release money for the next phase.
Hmm.
And they don't give us all the money at once. And I prefer it done that way rather than just have hundreds of thousands sitting in a bank account that we just start like spending whenever the contractors need it. I prefer it to be done more like a hard money loan, but we're actually the lender and the borrower, if that makes sense.
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, so when I was in the oil and gas world, I mean, this is like any other contractors, right? You file essentially your invoice. This is what we did. You file. This is how much money we need. You send an inspector out there, and I mean, I guess always like I understand exactly what you're doing. Like that makes sense. Like, hey, we're going to be, we want to establish trust,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
we're not going to allow ourselves the opportunity to just spend money mindlessly.
Exactly.
I get
Exactly.
that. It's just when you get into the bickering match with the inspector of like, no, you're not 75% complete. You're 74.5% complete. And we got to redo all of the invoice to get paid. And I'll be out here in 2 weeks and we'll check again. Like, oh my God.
That sounds like a pain in the ass, but it's like we have like it's funny because it's like I I almost want to like I'll front them like I think we should have some buffer where like there's amount where like we can front the money, right? Like the LLC might have some cash reserves to just front some money, so maybe the project isn't tied up because of the inspection. So maybe the inspection will let us access another 75,000, and we need the 75,000 to do the plumbing, which is the next phase. But we have 15 to 20,000 in reserves, so it buys us. We can start the plumbing work. It buys us some time while we're bickering with the investor. And he goes, "Okay, I'll come back next week." And he comes back. We get the 75. It reimburses from the reserve, and we can start. That's probably like a rolling amount of money to use as a reserve. Is probably how we're going to do it, which is so the project isn't delayed, but we're still doing the necessary steps. And the bickering is actually necessary because I want the inspector to be a pain in the ass for my GC partner who's doing the renovation, because I want him to almost like hate the rules and the red tape. I almost want him to, so he's being very meticulous. You know what I mean? It's like that necessary evil. Speed bumps suck. I hate speed bumps, but now that I live in a quiet, small neighborhood, I love speed bumps because they keep us safe. Cool. But guys, I know I spoke a lot. Do you guys have any questions? Do you use tele companies to pay them after phase one and phase two and phase three? No, we just use the tele company once to fund the deal, and then we're done. Once the deal's funded, all the money's in the LLC. That's what Grant does now. He has bankrolls the investment and funds pay the LLC back the gains additional percentage. That's cool. So Grant, well, I guess the idea is right. I'm thinking along the right track, but I don't know exactly how Grant does it. But thank you, Jason. That makes sense. Cool.
I mean, he probably, I assume he's getting some kind of, preferred return, and that's how he's making money as the project advances.
Yeah, Grant's a genius. He's figured out like he's like the Donald Trump of our generation. I think like Donald Trump is like the past generation. Now we've got Grant Cardone, who's really the current.
Yeah, it's unbelievable what he's done. Grant Cardone is just incredible.
I love Grant. I'm gonna probably once I do more of this stuff, I think I'm probably gonna take his mentorship or program or whatever 10x, but maybe in the next 2 years or 3 years. Probably not now necessarily.
Yeah.
Cool. So Jeff, I mean, did I answer? Did I help at all, or do you have any more questions? I feel pretty useless right now in this stage where I'm at.
No, man. Again, I appreciate you taking all this time. talk with me. I really hadn't thought about a fund. And a lot of this stuff, like, I was thinking about this. This isn't like creating a fund, creating a syndicate, like all this stuff. It may not be something that I deploy or people watching will deploy like today, but a
Right.
year from now, 2 years from now, like this is absolutely going to be a conversation that we're going to have to have. I find myself in this position now. Like, I didn't think 2 years ago I'd be in the
Mhm.
position of developing 230 acres. The thought hadn't
That's
occurred to me, and
that's
yet here I
awesome.
sit.
Yeah.
So it's good to not get bogged down with something like this and be like, oh my god, I have to find out everything, but just to be like, oh yeah, I remember this,
Mhm.
and I know I need to call Munif. I know I need to call these people, and throw a thought out. Hey, does this make sense, or am I just an insane person right now? And work it.
I think so. I love how you have partners who've already done this stuff a million times and they're just handling it, and you're like, like maybe I can have my own crowd fund, and like I might not need some like in future deals. I might be able to do some of this myself, or make more money because I've got 5 million of my from my fund to be a partner in. So I think that's really cool that you're doing that. I am similarly like for me and Noah, um, is our first time. We don't have a partner who's done this before, so we're we are shooting from the hip, Jeff. We're just like calling Pace and then calling his attorney and going, "What is Pace doing? Okay, we're gonna do that." Like, we're gonna do that. Yeah, we got
Nothing
Pace.
wrong with that. Well, they tell us like, man, they taught us in school, like, don't cheat off the other person's test. And then you get into real
Yeah,
estate and they're like, no, that is exactly what you do. You copy
that's
what
exactly.
everybody else has done.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. They're like, just copy.
Seriously.
Um, so Jeff, if I want to work with you, say I want to, I've got some land, in Houston or maybe somewhere else, maybe near a metro market, and I've got some land, and I think this is a really good opportunity. Maybe I've got a seller who's got 100 acres or 50 acres, and there's something here. The seller is highly motivated, and maybe they're open to creative finance. How do I contact you? How do I work with you?
Yeah. So, best thing to do is reach out to me on Facebook or Instagram. Instagram handle is jeff.r.w.smith. You can find me in the sub two group. And we're pretty specific about what we're looking for, though.
Is
So,
that
sorry.
Jeff Jeff.r.w.smith?
Yeah,
Is
that's
that
me on Instagram.
I'll put
So,
it up.
and the land we're looking for is land that is development ready. Like, you
Mhm.
can see the neighborhoods going up nearby, right? Like, it's happening, right? Don't send me something where the nearest McDonald's is like half an hour away. All right. I'm
Mhm.
finding people who can, because I want to partner and do stuff like that, but that's not what I specifically do, like, as of today. I'm going to
Mhm.
learn about that, and maybe a few months from now I'll know how to deal with that, but not at the moment. So it's
Cool.
typically north of 20 acres, near city limits, and we just kind of go from there. So if you reach out to me and you're like, "Hey Jeff, I genuinely think I can see the vision here," I'll send you a Google form, and it's got a YouTube video where I describe specifically what I'm looking for, and if it qualifies, we'll work with you there.
Dope. Because and what's your minimum like lot size or land size that you'll even consider?
Yeah. So as far as the parcels are concerned, what I tell people is, it's got to be at least north of 20 acres for me to get
Mm,
these builders to really pay attention to it.
mhm.
Um, and now, so like, yeah, I would just say that's the rule of thumb. North of 20 acres. If you're south of 10, I'm really not the guy.
Yeah, got it. And so if I got a property north of 20 acres, and I see in the area new builds are popping up like crazy. It's developing. I mean, people are really building here. There's a McDonald's 2 minutes away, not 30 minutes away. That's my pulse is like how far is the nearest McDonald's. Um, and I want to work with you and bring this to you. I message you on Instagram at jeff.r.w.smith, and then I can also find you on Facebook. So that's just Jeff Smith, right? Just search Jeff Smith.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's like 10 billion Jeff Smiths out there, but hopefully there's only so many of us in sub 2.
Well, here's this: Jeff Smith in sub 2 that's friends with me, because I think I'm only Facebook friends with you. You're the only Jeff Smith in Facebook.
I'm the only one. I'm the only Jeff Smith worthy of Munif's friendship.
So if I meet another Jeff Smith, I'm like, nah.
Imposter.
Like, you're cool, but I'm not adding you on Facebook. Oh, that's hilarious.
Jeff, do you do residential with a commercial core? So, okay, so that's an interesting question. So I think what we're talking about here is like mixed use developments. So actually, the one that we're working on now, it is going to have 3 commercial tracks as a part of that we will split off. Commercial core, not so much of like if I have like a box of land, I'm really not putting the commercial like smack in the center. Maybe that's not exactly what he means though. S Horn, can you kind of rephrase that for me? I feel like maybe I just confused myself. Anyway, there will be some commercial tracks along the kind of the major roadway. So yeah, we will absolutely do that. And then the rest of it that's kind of in the back goes residential.
That's cool. That's super cool. You know, one thing I've always wanted to do is like buy raw land, develop it, make this giant like complex, and then sell everything on seller finance. That's like one thing I've like really wanted to do, and just like hold a note on this like massive project. But I don't know.
Somebody brought me a 140 acres that was in Oklahoma, and it was a little remote. And I've reached out to a partner who does that. And what you're talking about with like subdividing and seller financing off the lots is what we're looking to do. As soon as I've tinkered around with that and kind of figured it out, I'll reach back out to you and we can talk about how that works and where to look.
That's really cool, because I talked with Chai and Prakash the other day on Monday. They're in Houston, so you know them really well, actually. You guys are pretty good friends.
Who is it?
And they're Chai and Prakash.
Oh, yeah, I know those guys.
Yeah. So they're doing a lot of stuff with notes and seller finance and owner finance, and they got me really thinking about like the possibilities of being the bank and financing the purchase or sale of the property. So really cool stuff here. Guys, Jeff Smith, he's amazing. You should follow him on Instagram, jeff.r.w.smith on Instagram. And he is the land guy, but don't go to him unless you're north of 20 acres and there is a McDonald's in striking distance. Because if the nearest McDonald's is 30 minutes away, I will personally smack you across the face if you submit a deal.
That's a real threat. Munif will come to your house. By the way, Munif, hope to see you again in Houston sometime. That was so fun hosting you. And Noah, I can't wait to meet up with you again, bro.
Yeah, dude, seriously. And then if you're ever in Phoenix for like, say, the State of the Union or the Mastermind, let's hang out. I'd love to host you.
I haven't figured out the secret to get invited to that. I got to go bribe somebody.
Oh, I'll tell you the secret.
Okay.
You just email melissa@sub2.com.
Oh, just tell her.
Yeah. You're like, hey, I'm Jeff. I like host the Daily Dials on Mondays. Is it Mondays for you? Your Mondays?
I do the Monday West Coast one, yeah.
Yeah, I do the Monday West Coast. I'm super active. Like, can I join? Can I come in? And she'll be, oh yeah, Jeff. Yeah, I see you on the Facebook lot. Yeah, here we go. She'll send you an invite.
Nice.
So that's so no bribes needed. All right.
Okay, got it. I'll come hang out with you and Kevin's show. We're just gonna have it. We're gonna have a great time.
Yeah, we're gonna have a great time. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining the stream. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you're watching the replay, appreciate you. Thank you so much for watching. Follow Jeff Smith on Instagram. Follow me on Instagram. Give us a follow. Turn on notifications for Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook. And I'll catch you next time. Take it easy, everyone.